Good evening and welcome to the March 26, 2024 meeting in the Milton Select Board. Before we begin, please join us as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Item 3 is public comment. For public comment, we allocate up to 21 minutes and up to 3 minutes per speaker. And what we do is we alternate between the speakers who are here in person and the speakers online. And so I will time the 3 minutes per person, and Mr. Milano will time the 21 minutes. We apologize in advance for cutting it so short, but we have to adhere to the policy to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and that we don't run afoul of the law for what we allow under public comment. So with that, I think we have one person who I saw signing up. So, sir, I think you're the first, sir. So why don't you come on up to the microphone? And if you could state your name and address, and then I will let you know when you're at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, when you have about 30 seconds left.
Okay, my name is Nick Sesso, and my family lives at 688 Randolph Ave.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
There are numerous very important issues facing the town, and sometimes a seemingly small issue, but of imminent importance and impact slides under the radar. My daughter, Caitlin Villard, her husband, Ryan, and their newborn, Maura, and Caitlin's mother, Mary, live at 688 Randolph Ave. When I bought the house in the late 70s, Randolph Ave was just a typical street, no different from any other street. Now it is a major busy highway, and if you live in the Route 28 section, the only escape you have from that highway is your backyard. We are 3 doors away from what we used to call Bent's Broken Cookie Factory, which has always been a non-conforming use in a residential district. In recent years, under the ownership of Falcone Properties, multiple businesses and residential dwellings have grown by leaps and bounds within that building. All of those with zoning variances that had to be approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And all of those variances theoretically had to adhere to what the zoning laws called a parking volume requirement. And that parking lot requirement is a zoning law terminology. Now, some months ago, after having purchased a residential property next door to the cookie factory, that being 672 Randolph Ave, a property that oddly doglegs around our property and our neighbors, Falcone Properties is looking to build an enormous 15-car and over 2,500 square foot parking lot. Has anyone considered the social and environmental impact of such an endeavor? Again, this is all residentially zoned, and the parking lot is 25 feet from my neighbors and 30 feet from our property. My question is, were the zoning guidelines for parking volume requirements actually followed with past Board of Appeals grants?
30 seconds, Mr. Sesso.
I'm done?
No, 30 seconds. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And if they were, why does Falcone Properties want or need an additional monstrous parking lot that my family and my neighbor's family have to live with? My daughter Caitlin and Ryan grew up in this town, and they want to raise their family here, and you are potentially marginalizing their kids' quality of life. Is this the precedent that you want to establish, that powerful people can arbitrarily expand their businesses onto residential properties at will? Nobody likes the term, but this is called zoning creep. As the top elected officials in Milton, I am begging you to look into this injustice. Milton has been
Thank you.
renowned for quality of living, and I am asking you to preserve that.
Thank you, Mr. Sedgwick.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And now, going on to the online, I think we have Tracy Redmond, who is, has her hand raised. So, okay, great. Oh, is she there?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, Tracy. If you could just give your name and address, and then you'll have up to 3 minutes, and I'll let you know with about 30 seconds to go.
Thank you so much. My name is Tracy Dyke Redmond. I live at 9 Ellsworth Road in Milton. And I'm speaking today regarding item 12 on the agenda, which is the municipal aggregation program, the community electricity program in Milton. And I think the Select Board is aware that the Climate Action Planning Committee, which I used to serve on, but I do not serve on anymore, I'm speaking just on my own behalf as a private citizen. But the Climate Action Planning Committee recommends that the Select Board seek a 20% voluntary renewable energy content for the default in the upcoming negotiation of the Milton Community Electricity Program. For those who don't know, the municipal aggregation program has been a great success. Since the program was launched in October 2021, the average program participant has saved about $1,300 compared to customers enrolled in Eversource Basic Service. The program has protected Milton residents from volatile electricity prices. In addition, the program has been very successful in helping Milton reach its clean energy goals and helping the state reach its clean energy goals. The program has helped Milton residents avoid 4.5 million pounds of carbon dioxide equivalent in emissions from electricity generation. Importantly, the program provides customer choice. Customers can choose between basic, green, or 100% green options. Currently, the basic option meets the state's requirements for renewable energy. The green option, which is the current default, allows for or provides for 10% more renewable energy than state requirements, and 100% green provides for full green electricity. So the proposal is to increase the default to 20% and 10%. That would have an average cost for customers of about $67 per year for the typical customer. But importantly, customers have the option to change at any time at no cost. So if customers were concerned about the price, they could opt to have a different option at lower cost. So I do think that this is a really good option. It would help Milton reach its clean energy goals and help the state reach its clean energy goals. And I hope the Select Board will consider following up on the Climate Action Planning Committee's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. All right, next, we're going to come in person. I think we have someone here.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Maggie Wilson. I'm at 21 Woodlot Drive. And I'm here to request something for your consideration for the board. It has to do with the agenda item that you're going to discuss as the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Trust about the RFP for the affordable housing project. And I see on the agenda that it looks like you're going to establish a committee that will review the RFP submissions and then, make proposals to the select board. And I was hoping to request that you include a resident on that committee, someone from the abutting neighborhoods. I am, as you know, in one of the abutting neighborhoods, and the Governor Stoughton, not the Governor Stoughton, the other street that's going to be the entrance. Now I can't remember. Thank you. I know someone on that street would like to be involved too, so I think we could volunteer to be on that committee if you would have us. And so just wanted to request that for your,
So Tracy, you're volunteering?
I would volunteer.
Great.
Yeah, I would volunteer, and then there's another gentleman that I know would volunteer. His name is Morgan Salmon.
Say again?
Morgan Salmon.
Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's been here before, too.
Just not to get into back and forth, but the recommendation from the Affordable Housing Trust for the committee was to include residents
good.
and abutters. So
Great.
So great to know that we have
Okay.
two
Okay.
people who are already
Raring to go.
ready to go.
So
All right.
wonderful. Okay, well, that was it. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone else for citizen speak online? I don't see
I
any
don't see any hands.
What's that?
I don't see any hands.
Yeah, no hands raised. I don't know what you were looking at, Richard. No hands raised. If you're on the phone, it's *9, but we don't see anyone there. We don't have any phones, right? So be no *9s, and I don't see anyone else here in person. So let's give just 10 more seconds if someone wants to raise their hand. And I don't see anyone. So. Before we get to item 4, I think without objection, we'll defer on item 5, which is the statement of interest for the School Building Authority. That's due on April 11th. We will have a meeting before that, and so we'll have a chance to have that presented to us before that. Defer on item 8, which is the resolution for the welcoming Haitian newcomers. We can take that up in the next meeting. We don't have a written resolution on that one as yet. Pardon me. And without objection, we defer on item 14, the room and building naming policy. We don't have anything on that. So if there's no objection, we'll defer on
Go
those
home.
items.
Let's go.
That's it. That's it.
It's
We're
unbelievable.
moving along. So hopefully the chief will keep us moving with item 4, which is the fire department application for the Safer Grant. And we have Chief Madden with us. So, Chief, take it away.
Motion approved.
That's easy. Thank you for having me tonight. Just give you a little backstory. So the Safer Grant is staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. When we look at the fire department and when I became chief, and it's pretty apparent that, we are understaffed. If we follow NFPA, all their guidelines and their standards, NFPA 1710 clearly states out how each fire apparatus should be staffed. We fall short of that, particularly. I'll get into real quick. The fire department is made up of 4 separate groups. Each group works 24 hours. On that shift, we have 3 engines, a ladder, and a deputy chief. So each engine is staffed with a lieutenant and 2 firefighters. So that would be 9, and then you add the 1 person for minimum staffing on the ladder truck, which is 10, and the deputy chief is 11. So our minimum staffing per shift is 11 firefighters. The NFPA states that each apparatus should have 4 firefighters, a lieutenant and 3 firefighters. So you would have a total of 4 for each engine and the ladder, and then obviously the shift commander. So that they suggest 17 firefighters on shift within 10 minutes to a building fire. Right now, we practice with a lot of mutual aid where we are understaffed, and when you look at how we are built, and you look at the budget. And, we're looking at the budget for next year. I put in for 5 additional firefighters to bring our staff up to 12, put a second person on the ladder. The ladder truck is the biggest truck that we have, and one of the most dangerous things that we can do is operate above a fire. And the ladder company typically operates above the fire, goes to the roof, searches the second floor, searches the third floor. So when we have 1 person, we really kind of lose, we steal staffing from another engine. Our 3rd engine to the fire will steal a second person on it, but we really should have a second person on it. And, so how do we get there? And when you look at the budget, everything's tight. I totally understand it. So one of the things that I've been discussing with Mr. Milano the last couple of weeks was the Safer Grant. This is a federal grant. It covers 100% of the cost per firefighter. With 0 paybacks or matches or anything like that. It's good for 36 months. And it'll pay 100% of the salaries, benefits, wages of, yep. The only caveat of that is when the 36 months is up, is you have to retain that staffing. So that's and if you don't, then you in default of the grant, and then you would have to pay it back. So this is a highly competitive grant. I believe they offer about 300 per year. Massachusetts, I think when I was reading, they had 5 last year. And it's some bigger cities. Haverhill had added 22 firefighters or something like that for a couple $1 million. That's a bigger city. I think they were running 2 per engine, 2 on the ladder. So they added significant staffing to, but after that 36 months, they're going to have to make sure they maintain those firefighters. I've reached out to a couple other chiefs in the area and got some tips. Randolph was successful a few years ago, so I've been talking to the Randolph chief and what are the best ways to get that. So hopefully, we'll be able to put something together. It's due April 12th. We'll put the package together and we'll submit it and see where we go from there. So I'm just looking for, the okay from the select board to move forward with this.
Comments or questions? Thank you, Chief. Comments or questions for Chief Matt and Ms. Bradley?
Thank you. You had already answered the one about healthcare, so thank you for that. I'm curious, because it's a federal grant, is there federal requirements that we're going to have to meet when it comes to diversity of what we're hiring? Because the federal government can oversee different regulations than what our towns and cities do.
Yep.
So I'm just curious if we could actually have an opportunity here to go outside and hire a more diverse fire department for our town.
So we follow civil service. We're under the civil service
Right.
statute in the state of Massachusetts, so we have to
Right.
follow all the rules and regulations with civil
This
service.
doesn't bypass that because it's
Nope.
federal?
No, it sticks with our hiring practices.
So I just was reading an article, I think it was Brookline has voted to not be part of the civil service anymore. Is that something that you guys have been talking about to try and diversify the rankings?
So civil service, and having the conversations with Mr. Milano today, civil service is going through a major overhaul right now.
Okay, great.
So, and there are some things, I know there's a bill at the State House to revamp civil service.
Okay.
And there is some steps that you could take to, make the list different. There's a couple different things there that could change, and what actually gets passed at the legislature, I'm not really sure about it. And I know Mr. Milano, we actually had that talk this afternoon about civil service.
Oh, great.
About some of the changes, and what actually comes out of that is going to be. We'll see what happens.
Right? I mean, this is a conversation you and I have been having now for, I think, 3
Yes.
years. So
Yes.
This is nothing new to you. Can you remind me how many women and then how many people of color we have on the fire department?
We have 2 women and 3 people of color.
Okay, so that hasn't really changed much in the
We really, we haven't hired too many since we've had these conversations. I
Right.
think we've hired two members since we've had these conversations.
Okay.
And some of the things that we're looking at, we had an open house before the civil service exam
Yes.
last summer. Anybody come in. One of the things I would like to do, I actually just signed up for a program at the school. They're doing some finance stuff.
Yeah.
So anytime we can get into the schools and meet these young kids that want to become firefighters or EMTs, I offer any kind of assistance on that. So I think the big thing is getting the word out and what the process is. Civil service is a great thing, but if you don't have all the information, if the information doesn't get out, then you're not on the list. You can't take the test.
Then you can't take the test. It's a shame that this federal grant doesn't bypass those rules so that we could get some diversity, but I understand. So thank you for entertaining my questions yet again. I appreciate it, Chief, and keep up the great work. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
Other comments or questions for Chief Matt and Ms. Musto?
Thank you. Just wondering what the turnaround is. So if the deadline is the 12th, when would you find out, and when would you anticipate if you got the grant on hiring?
Yep. So in the paperwork, it says 12th it's due. You'll find out by September 30th. And then you have a 6-month grace period before it kicks in. It can be less than if we hire firefighters in less time and we wanted to hire before that 6 months, but it automatically kicks in 6 months after that. So that would be like March, April. That you would actually, we would shoot to get and working with the Mass Fire Academy or local other fire departments, Boston or Quincy or Brockton, you'd be able to, hopefully we would be able to get these members into the fire academy and, before that, or that time, right at the start around the beginning of April. That would be the best case scenario.
Ms. Musto?
Follow up. So this is for 5 firefighters. Do you have a range of what you can ask for? Or is it just a standard 5? I'm just trying to understand.
You can ask for whatever you want. It has to be,
Is there a minimum? And maximum?
No, there's no minimum, no maximum. You know, I was
Okay.
looking at LA County. I think they got 17 million out of the grant. I'm looking for 1.5 million. You know, so it all depends on the size of the department. You know, so when I had the breakdown of the groups, each of our groups has supposed to have 14 firefighters. So we have 14 on 3 groups and 13 on 1. When we moved that person into fire prevention back in like 2006, we've never backfilled that spot. So what I'm looking to do is to backfill that spot to get all groups to 14, and then 1 more firefighter for each group to get us to 15 and move our minimum staffing from 11 to 12.
Thank you.
We could ask for 20 if we wanted to, but it's just that bill at the end of it that comes.
Well, yeah, that's why I was wondering if there was a range or, you know, how they did. How
It all
people
depends on
decided,
the city, the town, the
Okay.
department that's requesting it, yes.
Thank you.
But that's the reasoning why we went with 5.
Thank you.
Mr. Wells.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very familiar. This is very similar to the federal cop siren grant that came under the Omnibus Crime Control Bill back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where the town afforded a similar type hiring of police officers to kind of fill this very the same issue that she was referring to now. So I'd be prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve the chief's request to apply for the federal SAFER grant program as outlined by him tonight.
I would second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes. You went out of order there.
I'll get it before the end of the night. Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. I hope I
go
kept
after it.
moving along.
Yeah, go after it.
Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're deferring on item 5. Item 6 is discussion approval contract with Arrowstreet for designer services for the new school project. We had approved the amount for this, and then we have the contract. We had the contract in, but I guess there's been some revisions. So we have the chair of our school building committee, Mr. O'Rourke, with us this evening. The names are not coming that fast tonight, so we'll hopefully get on it later on.
This week.
Yeah. Good evening.
evening.
Sean O'Rourke, town meeting member, Precinct 8, chair of the school building committee. If I may, I just got a very brief presentation
Yeah,
to give some
please.
context. Just gonna switch. There we go. So this is just a kind of updated timeline from where we're at. This is similar to the previous presentation I provided to this board previously. The new update is, we're at a point now with Arrowstreet Architecture that we're ready to execute a contract with them. We've been working through the fall and the winter to develop that team. We've got PMA consultants as our owner's project manager under contract. And Arrowstreet, who we've been working with and is actually engaging in the school right now, is doing some work. So we're just hoping to get them up and running formally. The team of Arrowstreet, this is kind of the core team that they have right now. At the top are their basic design architects that are there. And at the bottom are supplemental consultants that they have, specifically the educational planner who's working with Superintendent Burrows and a district leadership team to do programmatic educational planning right now. They're planning on a site visit to the middle school next week to see inside the schools. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, there's a very large team of sub-consultants that carry the weight of a lot of the scope that you'll see in the documents. The concepts that were presented and we're kind of running between right now were a single one, as we indicated, which was a single building that housed 7th and 8th grade with a preschool wing. They indicated as their consolidated strategy. And then the second one, which is a separate preschool, so two distinct buildings that they labeled their campus strategies. So these are two we're kind of looking at with them right now. The scope of work that you've received basically covers a number of different things. So, as I mentioned, the educational planner is working on programmatic analysis, basically the educational system of the building. And then basically to walk you through everything, there will be code analysis. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems will have narratives to them, not a full design at this point. We'll have site development, schematic floor plans, exterior finishes, so we can actually see what all that looks like, basically in massing or renderings that we'll have there. We'll be doing preliminary traffic analysis there. Is similar to the architecture. We won't be able to, with the funding we have, take it to the full analysis. Some of the initial things that we'll be doing is an environmental and geotechnical analysis by taking sample borings to understand what type of foundations we need. And then while we have holes in the ground, taking soil samples to look for hazmat. And then finally survey, some additional survey on that. So all of that's going to roll up under that scope of work for an overall schedule and an overall cost estimate. The schedule by which we're asking the designers to perform this work is basically right now the educational programming, April, May, and then site evaluation and traffic, again, through April and May. And then as we get that run through concept design, May to June, and then utilize the majority of the summer, ending in September, with our schematic design and overall cost. So with that, the schedule that we presented before, this is kind of where we're at with the aim of a town meeting in the fall at some point, in developing that conceptual design and cost estimate so we can present it. And essentially, the one other thing that I forgot to mention last time we presented is the funding for this we already have allocated to us. So we're not requesting funding. The funding is there for us to utilize. And with that, I'll open up to any questions.
And just, thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Just to clarify, I believe this contract was before us.
There were certain things that were included in there that the architect was carrying, but excluding other things, specifically traffic, stormwater analysis, and stuff like that. So what we asked them to do is, for some of the stuff that's under the MSBA scope for architects that we didn't need for what we were doing, is to take that out and then include the other things supplementally for traffic, stormwater, the things we know that are concerns for citizens.
So those are in the contract?
Those are in the contract, correct.
Comments or questions from the members? Ms. Musto.
Thank you. You were talking about doing borings and things. I'm wondering, are you taking any trees down to do any of this work?
No, so the beauty of the site actually is the building is most likely going to line up exactly where the original Gow Road is. So with the proposal, we're doing a realigning Gow Road. The building kind of sits there. So the intent is to utilize the road that's there to do the borings. So we're not disturbing any of the trees or anything there.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Do we need
Yeah, we need to approve. We would need to approve the contract if we.
So I'll make a motion to approve the contract between the town. Is it the town of Milton? Is it between the town of Milton and
Arrowstreet.
Arrowstreet.
For designer services.
For designer services, and I'm reading off my phone.
For the new school project.
My agenda's on my phone tonight for the new school project. Thank you. Thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zoll,
Yes.
and Mr. Zulish, yes. Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke.
Yeah, excellent.
And we
Take tomorrow night
will
off.
see you again soon.
Thank you, I'll try. Have a great day.
Item 7, discussion approval of the Celebrate Milton resolution. Celebrate Milton is getting back and better than ever after some interruption, and we have before us a statement of support for Celebrate Milton. So, comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I had long talks with Pat Lattimore, who's been, as you know, deeply involved in this for as long as I can remember. And she remains committed to this. She remains, not just she, but her committee. And they did take a COVID hiatus, so I make a motion to strongly support her request. I believe they want to stay around the same date, something in the fall. They want to stay. and that we should I go to it every year. I think we should continue to do that. I think we should do what we can to support them.
I will second.
And that motion includes approval of the statement of support.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. All right, item 8 is deferred. Item 9, discussion, update, approval, FY 2025 operating and capital budget. Mr. Milano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had presented the my budget recommendation at the last select board meeting. That budget has been in front of Warrant Committee. They continue their deliberations, including meeting last night. They are meeting this evening. Amy Dexter is there at that meeting tonight. I do want to mention that the school committee did vote last week requesting that capital items that were recommended for the schools in the amount of $240,000 be reduced out of capital and moved to operating. The Warrant Committee discussed that last night, plan to pick the conversation back up tonight and potentially tomorrow, but I wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Okay, comments or questions? Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did accompany Mr. Milano and Amy last night. Chair Carroll was there as well as school committee member Mark Warren came in later, and Mark and I just had a long conversation tonight. So the capital committee, we're going to meet on Thursday. The difficulty in this is, I want to try and be brief, but give a little historical perspective, is that prior to the creation and manning of a consolidated facilities department in this town, capital was really just kind of like a paper exercise. We didn't do much. It was, as a department head and having lived through it, you just kind of passed it along, and maybe even no matter whatever department, every once in a while you might get lucky and get one thing. There was real no commitment. Thanks to Bill Ritchie, a former member of our board, Tom Hurley, Amy, others, Glenn, even going back to as far as a former member of this board, Charlie McCarthy, was a lot of hard work to create a consolidated facilities department. And the quote bill was that we needed to protect the infrastructure of our community as well as commit to replacing equipment in a timely manner. The reality of it is that even in all the capital requests we receive annually, we only really get to fill ones. Maybe you get a one, even for the schools, it's a 1 and a 2. The issue with the Chromebooks, and I explained this really at length to Mark today, is it took us 3 years to get DOR approval to get it from operating to capital, because as you know, anything in capital is guided as to what you can, length of use, time, lifespan, all of that. So this is unprecedented. The capital's never done this. We've never taken from capital to go to operating. And I commend Lizzie. She did a not just to me, and we had a lot of conversations when I was in Florida last week, to the point that several times I went, who are you talking to? But she's, and I get it, she's fighting for her, not herself, for the schools and the kids that go there. There is a lot of concern, though, amongst the committee, Amy, Nick, is that if you do this, you're opening a door that then you can't close it. And what happens to another department who comes and says, okay, I need this, I don't want the capital. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to emphasize to the school personnel, and Glenn and I talk almost every other day, is that you fought so hard to get the Chromebooks and to get them included, and you made it a priority since the point that we funded it again this year. Where do you go from there? And the last thing that I said, and I don't want to open the door too wide tonight, but Chair Carroll did talk about it at length to the Warrant Committee last night, and I concur with her 100%. We are encroaching that time again where we're going to need an operational override, and it will take, it is one of the few things I've been on every one of them since '86. It will take this entire year to set the table as to what it will be required to maintain the quality of life for all of our departments that people expect. And as you know, there's always a no. There's always going to be those who can't afford it or who don't. And but we lucked out with ARPA. We got we did the level service exercise. We've stretched this now 8 years, and we can't just do this in a week. This is going to take some real thinking. I like Nick's idea, Mr. Long's idea of meeting with core team members regularly to kind of outline what the needs are going to be, what's going to have to be protected, what's going to have to be paid for. So I get Chair Carroll's argument. We are going to meet on Thursday. The one thing I did say, if this does, I don't know what the Warrant Committee is going to do, but if this doesn't go, I did ask Nick and Amy that if there's any additional money that we can find, whatever does happen, if we can move it in to cover. It's not like they're not arguing legitimate need, but every department's arguing legitimate needs, and that's the difficult thing being this. It's hard to say no. It is. It's hard to say no. So I know I just went a little too long, but I felt that I had to elaborate it. And I thank them and everyone, especially Nick and Amy and the Warrant Committee, everyone in the Finance Committee, everyone who's put in so much time to create a balanced budget. So sorry, I was lengthy on that. This is significant. This is this is one of the big things for this community. So.
Ms. Bradley.
Thank you so much. So, Member Wells, you're absolutely right. This is a big thing. And, in the newspaper business, if you give up an inch of space, you'll never get it back. So I understand the concerns. I've been dealing with our town budget now for 7 years. I know about the Capital Improvement Committee. I know exactly what you guys are supposed to be doing and what you're supposed to be funding. Mr. Chair, I have an idea, but I don't know if I can offer it at this point. I have an idea to rectify this.
Well, if it's up to you. If you think it's best suited to bring it up here, you can do that. Let me just say that, the goal is to balance the budget, and the goal is always to get a consensus among the Warrant Committee, the School Committee, and the Select Board. We've done that, the last 14 years I've been involved. It's been done only every year except for one. So, so if you think it's best to do that by saying that here, or if you want to go off and try to, talk to people and come up with a resolution, you can do that. It's up to you. Whatever you think is the best way to go.
Well,
do you know what this is?
No,
you don't know. So okay. I don't.
I'm a pretty smart lady. I can run numbers. So I've been looking a lot at our legal line item, and I have been. We got an email today. Our annual legal budget is $352,000 annually. But there's a retainer in that, which obviously is something that needs to be. That's our known quantity, right? So just like Chase does his snow, there's a known quantity. You put it in, and that's kind of your baseline, right? If you go over in a year, you go to the general fund and you get that money.
Reserve.
Yeah, exactly. So. Not every year we're going to go over.
Well, not last year and this year.
Right. Well, we just got an estimate that would fall within that. And so.
Within his line item?
No, within the legal line item. So that next fiscal year, we wouldn't need to allocate so much money to the legal line item because this year's legal line item would cover what has been given to us, if you all read the email at 6:39.
I didn't, but you're talking two different years.
So no. I think we're getting into discussion of emails and all that. But we can do it. But I wonder about people are not going to know what we're talking about here, which is fine.
So what I'm trying to say is instead of putting so much money in the FY25 operating budget for our legal line item, I am saying we take the 240 from that will still leave us $37,000 extra that we could have in there. What I'm saying is we don't need to put that much money into our legal line item because our legal line item that we are worried about and this thing is going to be covered this fiscal year. We're talking about next fiscal year. And that was what was sent to us today. So what I'm trying to say is, if we go over, we've got $37,000 that we can still go back and dip into. If it's over that, we can go to reserves.
Can I?
Mr. Wells.
All right, so, you're right. So, I don't want to go there tonight. You may be right. And I'm just going back to two things. What I just said was, if all that turns out to be the case, and the person who, and I've said this to everyone, because people said, well, why don't you guys just, like, go over, Mr. I'm like, the one thing, as you know, when we created the Strong Town Administrator, it's his, I mean, we can weigh in and all, but it's his, so if you, and you're in finance, if you get to a reason where, I've already told him, and I told him the same thing, to me, this is my own opinion, I want to get into that, because we're not going to do this tonight. If you come to me with something that's Russia where you found the money, and he's fine with it, I believe I would be fine with it.
Well, it's an option.
I hear it, but I don't think we should be doing that here.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I don't have an opportunity to speak to you all on a regular basis.
Right.
And so, because I can't, because it's against the law. So this is a place where I get to say an idea that I had, which actually could end up working, instead of hindering us by putting money that oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, goes back into reserves at the end of the fiscal year.
That's how you get your free cash.
Right, but
That's how you get your free cash.
But why are we, it's like, why would you do that in your like in your own personal checking account? You wouldn't say, I'm gonna spend $5,000 on this when it's only gonna cost me $2,000. You'd use that money. You wouldn't want the government to take your tax.
No, I'm.
So I'm just saying, it's an opportunity.
I
So
get it.
if I could make a suggestion.
Sorry.
I was just going to make a suggestion that the.
We can just spend it all on legal.
Maybe the Finance Committee, I don't know if our Finance Committee is going to meet, but if the Finance Committee could meet, perhaps, and maybe with the School Finance Committee, and make a recommendation and with the Town Administrator to try to get consensus on it, because the goal is always to get consensus. And I will observe that in this effort to balance the budget and get consensus, we are down to less than 0.4% of the overall budget for the town, and we're down to less than 0.2% of the overall town budget, and we're down to less than 0.4% of the overall school budget, which means we're down to the now this is very important, but in context, we're pretty close. If this is something that the school committee and the warrant committee are agreeable to, then maybe we can find consensus on a budget. Ms. Bradley.
Thank you so much. So the Capital Committee is meeting Thursday morning. If my fellow Finance Committee member would like to meet, I don't know if we can watch. I mean, I don't know if
You can always watch. Yeah,
we
you
can
can
watch the Capital Committee?
Yeah.
Just so I know.
Oh, no, wait a minute. No.
No, I can't watch it. Is it on MATV that I can?
No.
Okay.
7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. I would be more than happy to have a meeting of the Finance Committee to take a look at what the Capital Committee votes on and talk to the school committee and the town administrator. I don't want to give up, and I'm just going to say this, I don't want to give up money from the Capital Committee that's not going to go back in there next year, because like I said, if you give up a line,
Right.
you may not get it back.
And that is part of my big capital concern, is that you fight so hard. Like, I feel very bad for the library. Like, they've been waiting for this, we're waiting, and again, it's like, nah. It's hard, it's, you come to the meetings, like, you're there every week. I mean, it's very, okay.
Can I just add some, in terms of what the legal budget?
You're being too quiet over there.
Yeah, and then we'll go to Ms.
Sorry.
Ms. Musto,
I'm good.
Ms. Musto, did you have something?
I might, but.
And then Mr. Zoll has his hands up, that's fine.
Just in
Go
terms
ahead,
of what the
Mr.
legal budget
Malone.
funds, it funds our retainer, which is $75,000, but special services, which is the $270,000 line item, includes Labor Council. And 6 months into next year, we'll begin reopening collective bargaining agreements. It funds 40B defenses. Those are winding down for sure because most of them have settled, but it does do that. It covers anything generally that might come up this year, approximately $45,000 in special services, FAA litigation, suits that might come up when we sued the MBTA last year. And then Labor Council is a significant cost factor, especially as we're not going to be in the middle of a collective bargaining year, but we're going to be at the beginning when we're reopening those contracts. So I don't want the misconception that the retainer covers all of those.
I get
those
you.
are outside of the retainer. So it's a pretty, there's a certain amount in that budget that is similar to the retainer that we expect to spend every year. Okay. And then there are things that come up that are unanticipated. We have had a significant turnback in '23 of $100,000 that was underspent. The prior year, we overspent that budget by $40,000. So that's just the past 2 years in terms of some of the history there. So I wanted to just make sure I got that out there in terms of what the full budget actually covers. And I didn't want the misconception on the special services or professional services.
Let me just observe, there could be a blend here, a blend of legal and a blend of capital. There could be a blend if that would satisfy.
That was the word I was going to say. I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't see any.
I'm just looking everywhere.
I am too. I agree. So like, and it could be. It could be. And we may not get. And one of the things I did say, I've said it to Glenn and Nick. We may not get anywhere. We may not get completely to where they want, but we could maybe get halfway.
Yeah, and just recognizing we are down to, again, not 2%, but 0.2%
I get it.
of the
I get it.
overall budget,
I get it.
and 0.4% of the, less than 0.4% of the school budget. Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to answer Ms. Bradley's question, I know Friday is Good Friday, but I'd be happy to have a meeting on Friday if it's not a holiday or prohibited.
Finish before 3.
12.
Finish. Don't do it between 12 and 3. Just a tip. You'll be long done by then.
That's it from me, Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Musto.
Thank you. I think we should also be cautious, though. If we need the money, then we need the money for these items, and that's why you look at overrides, right? So I do think that, taking it out of the law budget when we've heard, how it's been sort of a yo-yo. 1 year was high, 1 year was low. I think that's risky, and I don't know that we should be doing that. We have a lot of, we have cases right now. We may have other cases coming up that are unanticipated, and as Mr. Milano talked about with, contracts and so forth, labor disputes. I mean, we've had certain things pop up that were unanticipated, and that could always happen. And so I think that is sort of a slippery slope when you start dipping into things like that, when we've been over 1 year and last year was probably a fluke, right? So I do think that's a little risky.
Ms. Bradley.
Thank you. I hear you, and I'm just literally kicking all the tires that we have on our line items. I really am, because, like I said, I'm not in love with taking money out of capital.
Right, I get that.
Spending so many years on the Warrant Committee and knowing how many things we didn't fund in the last 5 years, there was a part of me that I was like, can we find something somewhere else? And so I'm not saying this is the greatest solution, but I'm kicking every tire to see what I can find and shaking every tree. And this was one idea I had. It may not be the greatest, but I really am. I'm concerned if we take money out of capital.
And I would agree with that.
Okay.
So I agree with that, but I don't know if this is a solution.
And I will observe that, in my experience, when you get down to this point of the budget where you're at 0.4% or 0.2%, it's usually a blend of different items where you may be. I mean, Mr. Milano has done a great job at getting the blood from the stone here, but to the extent that we can blend different items, then maybe we can satisfy a couple of different needs. So let me suggest this. We were scheduled to meet on April 9th because of this new issue or potential resolution. Even though I know Mr. Zoll is unavailable next Tuesday, but perhaps next Tuesday is really kind of the drop dead date for the warrant. So if we were going to do something on this, we'd have to do it next Tuesday. So if we could meet next Tuesday, and I know Mr. Zoll has told me he can't make it, but if the four of us can meet next Tuesday to try to see if there's any update on this, to get a resolution, and we could accomplish any other items, we could maybe meet next Tuesday in lieu of April 9th in order to finalize the budget. Then Mr. Zoll.
Yes, just to say, Mr. Chair, I'm confident the select board can come up with a good solution for this. So I know that I can't make it. I always have a conflict on the first Tuesday of the month, but I will, if Ms. Bradley wants the Finance Committee to meet on Friday to then put a recommendation forward for the Tuesday meeting, I'm happy with that. But I'm confident that the four of you can come up with a good solution here. Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
I'm okay with that.
All right, so we'll when we talk about future meeting dates, we'll plan to meet on Tuesday.
I thought you were going to say both, and I'm like, if I give up.
No.
So
No.
if you want to just swap it, I'm okay.
Swap
with
it out.
that.
Yeah, we'd be swapping it out. Yeah, we'd be swapping it out. So, okay, all right. Anything else on the operating capital budget? Item 10, the warrant. May 6, 2024 annual town meeting, review of warrant articles and then approval of the warrant. We have a warrant to approve, which we could approve in substantially this form, and then revise any items that we need to next Tuesday night. But Mr. Milano, why don't I go to you to tell us what we need to do here?
No, Mr. Chair, I agree. The warrant is pretty set at this point, other than some of the items we've talked about here, is that might be some last potential minute changes that the board might want to put forward. Warrant committee is winding down this week, and the articles have been in front of them. I would suggest that if the board's okay to go, then I would suggest approving the warrant as presented in substantially this form and subject to any final edits by town council.
So I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 annual town warrant in substantially the form provided and subject to any final ministerial edits by town council.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. All right, item 11 is discussion approval of the April 30th, 2024 annual town election warrant.
Same thing, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Mr. Milano.
If the same motion would be helpful, substituting town election warrants for town meeting warrant. Obviously, the town election is April 30th. For folks who had filled out the vote by mail form that you got from the Secretary of the Commonwealth, you will receive your ballot in the mail. Several thousand voters did so. With the special election and the primary around the same time, there was a lot of interest in receiving those vote by mail ballots. So be on the lookout for those. I think the printing of the ballots will start at the end of this month, early April, and then they'll start to show up in mailboxes. But polls will be open regular hours on the 30th of April. And I think that's all I have at this moment.
All right, so I'll make, just to repeat the same motion, I'll make a motion to approve the April 30th, 2024 annual town election warrant in substantially the form presented, subject to any ministerial changes by town council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Zulish, yes. Item 12, discussion update the Milton Community Electricity Program. This is the electricity aggregation program. Mr. Milano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I spoke about this briefly at our last meeting, just identifying some highlights. So I'm going to take an opportunity to go through some of the same information, but then identify some of the decision points that the Select Board has this evening. So just for some of the history, the program launched in the fall of 21. There are three options for the program. One is called the basic option, which means you are enrolled in a product similar to basic service, which means you sign up for the same renewable energy credits and renewable portfolio that you would get if you stayed with Eversource as your electricity provider. Under the local community aggregation program, the town procures your basic service or your electricity supply, which is a portion, basically half of the bill that you receive. And there are three options to do so, one of which is the basic, as I just mentioned. The second is the default, which is greener than basic, so 10% higher renewable energy credits than required at the basic level. And then there's a third option, which is the 100% green, which means that rather than some lower percentage, you sign up for a program that offers 100% of green renewable energy credits. So your price point is higher, but you're buying more energy credits that should in turn encourage additional renewable energy development and growth. The program has been very successful. What we show here is the green option, so the 10% option, which is the default. The price for people in the program was 10.8 cents a kilowatt hour, beginning in fall of 21, running through up to this fall in 24. The blue line that you see, the green line is the price that you paid if you were in the program. The blue line is the price you would have paid if you were enrolled in basic service, as you can tell. So basically from after the first 3 months, this savings have been huge compared to Eversource's basic service rate, which the energy market went a little crazy for the last couple of years. And it's starting to settle down now, but settling down at a much higher number than it had been before. And as had been mentioned previously, the average residential customer has saved about $1,300 over this time period. Participation has been high. As you can tell here, we have, it started with around 6,300 participants. Occasionally, the program will run sweeps where they pick up new customers who moved into Milton, and then occasionally people will opt out of the program, and you'll see kind of people picking up and then opting out. But the overall trend has been growth, and we're over 7,000 enrolled participants now. So savings for the entire program, $9.5 million since the launch, based on our energy use and the price that Milton is paying versus what would have been paid if we stuck with basic service, or all the customers stuck with basic service. So $9.5 million over the past several years. In terms of who has signed up for which program, of the 7,000 plus participants, 400 are in that basic tier, 6,500 are in that green 10% tier, which is the default one, and then 105 customers have opted into the 100% green program. We're, through this program, purchasing 6,000 kilowatt hours of additional renewable energy and making significant strides in terms of reducing what our greenhouse gas emissions would be. Just looking in terms of, you can see the price volatility over the past couple of years, where the spikes have been and where they occur on a month-to-month basis. So I'm going to move through a couple of these slides, as this is more about pricing. In terms of where other communities are, so now we're talking about the 10% green program and what does the town want to have that program set at. You can see here a sample of communities that Good Energy, our broker, works with. Arlington's default program is at 30% green. Brookline's is at, I believe it's 36%. And a lot of these programs have increased that percentage over time. Somerville and Winchester are also at 20%, with the balance in that 10% bracket, which Milton is currently in. This chart is a little tricky to follow, but the main point that you should take away is that regardless of what Milton does on additional renewable energy credits, Massachusetts's program is moving towards greater renewable requirements in basic service anyway. So as you can see from this chart, over time, the default product will eventually reach a much greener portfolio. So Milton's additional increment of additional green would help reduce this 37% in 25 quicker over the next several years. So if we did nothing, we would be greener in 3 years from now, but embracing a higher default option would get it to be even greener, even quicker. There is an additional cost here. It's not free to do this. This shows what the expected cost per year would be, assuming an average user of 8,300 kilowatt hours a year. So presently, the 10% program likely results in about a $33 per year increase per customer. If that were 15%, it would be a $50 annual cost. Or if it were 20%, it would be $60 over what somebody would expect to pay on basic service. And that's really it in terms of the presentation. The question before the board tonight is first whether to continue the program at all, which I think is pretty a good agreement on doing that. And then the second one is for that default option, do we want to stay at the 10% metric or increase it to 20%? And knowing that customers who maybe don't want to pay that additional price may opt out entirely, or they may opt back to a basic price point, save dollars, have a less green product, but a cheaper product. So those are the considerations that the board might want to take into account. So happy to take any questions or speak to it in further. And as Tracy mentioned, actually she probably didn't, but we did receive a notification from Alex Hasha from the Climate Action Planning Committee that they met this past week and voted to recommend the 20% voluntary renewable energy content for the default option. I just wanted to make sure I shared that with you, and there's additional backup information from Alex in this communication to the board.
Before we have comments, questions, is there times, given the fact that we just got this memo from Climate Action Planning Committee today, is there time sensitivity to making a decision on the default option? In other words,
Yes,
and
well,
since we're meeting next Tuesday.
That is why we originally were looking for it, was assuming the meeting was the 9th. I know we're getting indicative pricing on Friday that will start to tell us where we expect that pricing to come in. I believe it's more beneficial to having a decision now. I can check in about that and get back to the board if folks aren't ready to make a change off the 10% and we go forward with 10%, and maybe if the board's willing to move to 20 and still has that option, you can take that up on next Tuesday night.
Comments or questions from members? Ms. Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I think I'm just a little bit confused here. So there's no way that we can keep it at 10% as the basic and then people could opt into the 20%?
Correct. The recommendation is to try to keep programs pretty streamlined, not to offer another different option.
Right.
So it'll be 3 options. It'll be basic, no additional green, 10 or 20%.
So, but the basic would be no green.
No green.
No additional, yes, correct.
No green.
Yeah.
The next one will be 20% green,
Correct.
which will cost us $67 now.
Per year, more than the
More
zero
than
green.
the, okay.
Twice as much.
Yeah.
Wow. And then the,
100% green is,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't have a number on that, so that would
It's
be
even more.
Yeah,
It's even more. But basically, we're asking folks that have opted into this to basically raise it double annually.
Well, they haven't opted, they've opted
Well,
into the program, but
that's what
this
I
is the
mean.
default rate. This is the default.
Right, but this is the
rate.
best rate that we get.
No, it's not the best. The basic is the best.
Basic, yeah.
This
Basic's
is the default.
Oh, maybe
This is
I'm
the
in the
default. This is the default that people go in. This is the one that has green. And right now, it's $33 per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
Not per kilowatt hour.
$30 per year.
$33 per year. And this would put the default rate, which is the which is the first green rate, from 10 to 20, but it would double the cost.
Can I
double
just-
the additional cost.
Can I just
Bradley.
clarify?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm being weird here.
No, I get I see where you're going with it.
So if I was to just opt into this, it's opt in or is it opt out?
It is.
It's opt
an
in.
opt.
Okay, so if I opted into this, I'm opted into the basic program?
If
You're
you
opted
did,
into the default.
To the
Well,
default, which is the basic, correct? Am I
Yeah,
using
this
the
is the
wrong
problem
words?
with terminology. Default is 10% greener.
Yeah, it's the green. It's the second one.
Oh, so I would have to actually say I want to change it.
Correct.
Correct.
Oh, that's going to be that's a
tricky.
step.
Right.
Oh, I'm not in love with that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, if you opt into the program, you would, unless you chose either basic or 100%, you go into this, currently the 10%, which is $33 a year. And the requested change is to make that default, if you opt in, a 20%, which makes the rate $67 per year. Other comments or questions? Ms. Musto
Go
and
ahead, you go
Mr.
first,
Zoll.
Alex.
Ms. Musto and Mr. Zoll.
Oh, sorry.
So I thought when this all came about that it was was it an opt-in or an opt-out?
No, opt in.
It's an opt-in.
No, when the program
No, it
started,
was opt
everybody
out.
was automatically enrolled.
It was
because
opt
of
out.
post-start, and you had to get out.
Yeah,
At
it was
this
an
point,
opt-out,
if
right.
you have opted out, now you're out and you have to come back in.
Right. Now you have to opt
So
in.
you won't have any of this if you're already opted out.
That's right.
Correct.
Unless you decide to opt in.
That's
But
right.
if you're already in the program, it seems like it's a little confusing with
Yep.
these different things.
Depending on the level you're at, depending where you're at, yes.
Your level's going to, if you're
Right.
already in the program and you're at the default,
Yep.
then your price will be
Right.
double.
Right.
You're going from 10 to 20.
And that's
That's
why I
confusing,
included
yeah.
that slide that showed that Massachusetts is moving to greener portfolio anyway, so the percentages will change over time, even if you do nothing. The board would be choosing to accelerate that green transition, which there's value in that, but there's an expense as well.
Mr. Zoll.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I do want to echo what Mr. Milano just said. I do think that there's a value in accelerating. I know from the earlier slide that he showed, we have really benefited, folks that have opted into this have really benefited from great rates because of the rapid transition to green energy that's been taking place in the Commonwealth. And I'm supportive of us moving to a 20%. I think if folks have opted into this, if people decide that they want to opt out, they can do that at this point. Everyone who's in this program is in there now because they've chosen to be in there. But the climate crisis is a real thing, and we need to be moving our entire network onto greener energy sources. And so this does not seem to be a drastic increase. From $30 some to $60 some a year is not a huge cost. To double what would be the amount of green electricity that's getting put into the grid. And if we perform half as well as we performed the last time, our customers that opt in are still going to be saving a lot of money. So to me, this is a bit of a no-brainer to follow the committee's recommendation to approve and to go with the 20%. But admittedly, I'm not in the room and I may be missing some of the conversation, but to me, I'm in favor of moving this forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let me just go, Ms. Bradley.
Sorry, thank you. Yes, $30 doesn't seem like a lot, but we last week voted to increase the trash fees. I'm just trying to look at the forest here, guys.
I agree.
I agree.
So there's the trash fees, there's now this, which people and many of my seniors are gonna have no idea that they have to now change it to basic. I would not think of that. I would just think I was in the same thing and all of a sudden I'm paying $30 more. And we're looking at an override, which we've now just spoken about. And I just am for me personally, I get it that it's green and it's better, but I don't think that this is right. You should be able to choose 10% or 20%. I don't understand why that's an issue. Like if Ben wants Member Zoll wants to save the world, then he should be able to pick 20% and I should be able to stay at 10%. I don't understand why we can't have those two things.
We can pick 100%.
Well, right, 100, but why? But why
how
are
much
we
is that,
moving
though?
our?
What is that?
It's
It wasn't up there.
Did you listen to what she said?
It's no, I understand.
moving our
understand, but-
default.
Right.
I understand, but when the program was put in,
I know,
we had all the
I remember,
explanation as to why
It's
they
a great
can only hit
program. I love the
three.
program.
Mr. Zoll, your name was taken, so go ahead.
Sorry, Ben.
Thank you. And just to point out, Ms. Bradley, I know that you're aware of this, but your seniors are my seniors too. They're all of our seniors. We all live in Milton. And so
You're using my words
push
now,
back
Mr.
on that a
Zoll.
little bit. The cost of climate change is very real to our residents. When we talk about flooding, when we talk about increased insurance, yes, it's not as clear cut as an extra dollar on your electricity bill or not, but it's a very, very real cost. And as a community, we not only have to think about our seniors, but we have to think about everybody in this community that's going to be affected by climate change in the future generations. And this, to me, is a very minor way that we can be actively engaged. I'm not pushing for 100% renewables here, and maybe I should be. But I think that we're being a little bit glib about an issue that many, many people identify as the most pressing issue that the entire world faces. And yes, we have significant structural problems with our town's budget. And I have not gotten on my soapbox to talk about how the planning board has not yet come up with a plan that's going to actually fix
the continual crisis that we're going to have as long as we rely on residential tax dollars to fund our town. But I think the very least that we can do is be taking the climate change very seriously. And yes, it's an added cost. Yes, our trash costs have gone up for the first time in 20 years. They're still not adequately covering our trash costs. Yes, we have serious structural deficits in this town that our planning board continues to fail to address. But the very least that we can do is to take the climate crisis seriously and push this forward. If people want to opt out, they can opt out. We can send out explanation mails. People have already opted out. The people that have opted into this have benefited from it. The people that will opt into this in the future will benefit from this. The town will benefit from this. So I really want to push back a little bit on the glib attitude that we're taking here towards climate change, which is the fundamental crisis that the world faces and that our town will continue to face for the next 100 years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Mrs. Musto.
Thank you. Couple of points would be that if we're talking about this article before us, with this idea before us.
Agenda item, yeah.
Right, I think that bashing another board in the process is not the right message here. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So let's stay on point and talk about what we're talking about. It's not taking a glib attitude if you're concerned about the fact that people will be confused when they get their bill. They won't understand why their rate is double, what they're paying. Their bill is double. I think that is a concern. You're talking with young people, old people, whoever live in this community, and it's very confusing if that happens. And in the context of things that are going up, people are paying more for groceries. People are paying more for their gas and their car or electricity. You know, everything adds up, and every little thing matters. And so, as Ms. Bradley pointed out, with the trash stickers going up and the cost of a barrel, in context with going to the store and buying your groceries, and we saw what happened when the Residents Fund came before us and their needs. So these are real issues. And so what I would think is that I don't know if we should be going to that default right now. I think it's confusing to people. Thank you.
Mr. Wells.
Verify one.
Sure, and then Mr. Wells. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Member Wells. I just wanted to clarify, when I say my seniors, that means the seniors that I work with on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that I own the senior population here in Milton. It's part of my job, my day job. I do have one of those still. And I work with seniors all over Eastern Massachusetts, and I happen to service a lot of seniors in our town. So when I said my seniors, I'm just meaning the people I see on a monthly basis. So sorry if there was confusion.
Mr. Wells.
It's like teachers referring to my kids. You know, all kids are their kids. So it's a parochial statement. So I hear everyone's point of this. So if we can, my one concern, and believe me, I'm not being glib at all on this. I get it, but Member Bradley's correct. And it isn't 20 years since we went up. I don't even think it's 10 years since we went up the trash stickers. It's definitely less than 10. But
2006, I think, was the last time. Yeah.
Well,
but anyway.
Yeah, all right, whatever. So, my big concern is, and you're right, and it's not just seniors. There are people in this community, more than most could count, that every dollar is real. Like, it's real. And so, if they see a chance to stay in the real and survive at where they're at, they're going to do it. So my concern is, you know, what do you lose versus what do you gain? And I see this in three ways. A, if we stay at the 10, we're going to get to 20 anyway. The state, as Mr. Milano said, the state's moving that way. B, I worry if we jump to 20, too many are going to opt out, and then you're back there at 0, and then you lost all that you've gained at the 10. And so sometimes half the apple is better than no apple at all. And I don't say that in a glib way, but unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world where everybody can pay for everything. And you may be reluctant to hear this, but I'm thinking in a reasonable way, looking at what is before us and all the things now. I think at 10, we're still doing it. I support the Commonwealth's move towards additional credits. And I just have one question. So this is a $33 difference annually, or
And it's annual. Are you finished?
I'm done, yeah. I'm done for
I
now,
wasn't
yeah.
sure if that was just a
I was pausing, but
reflective pause.
I don't want to take time.
No,
So
no,
if I
fair
come
enough.
back, I'll raise my
All right,
hand again.
if you think of
It was a
something.
reflective pause,
If
but I'll come back
the
again.
reflection results in something. Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add that we can't assume that non-green energy costs are going to remain static. So this is another point where this is why folks that have opted into this program have done so well, is because non-green energy sources, the cost for that continues to go up. We've seen that with the war in Ukraine. We're going to continue to see that with the destabilized carbon markets. So yes, this is an initial cost, but for people who are interested and for people where their dollars make a difference, people that have opted into this green energy program have saved significant dollars, and they will continue to save dollars because this is where the whole world is trending. So right now we have an opportunity to lead. We have an opportunity to demonstrate the seriousness which we take the climate crisis in our future. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to continue to lead. Yes, we can educate folks about how this is going to affect their budget in the short term, but we can also demonstrate to them that in the past, this investment has really reaped significant rewards for folks for their energy costs. Yes, the dollars are real. And yes, we know that the carbon markets are very destabilized and they're going to continue to be destabilized. So it's really a smart investment here. This is not some idealist state of the world. And finally, to Ms. Musto's point, the financial state of this town is precarious. And we must, when we have the opportunity, make the point that we need to address the long-term fiscal sustainability of this town. And the select board meets regularly and does our jobs regularly. I'm calling on the planning board, and I will do it again and again, begin to do their job, to comply with state law, which they promised that they would do, which we did not get a plan in the warrant. And I realize this is off topic, but we must look to the financial sustainability of this town. And if the select board is the only body in this town that's going to do that, then it's our responsibility to do that. This is one way that we look towards the sustainability of this town. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I'm going to say about this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Ms. Bradley.
I just thought of an idea that might get us to 20.
Okay. All right.
Is there a way that we could do a set aside amount of money from the Governor Stoughton Trust to help alleviate those that are within X amount of the federal poverty to pay for this increase? I've been thinking outside of the box. I know Roxanne's already dying. But,
No, I'm thinking about the.
is there a way that we
Finish.
I don't know what I'm thinking. I literally just thought of this. Is there a way that we can try and offset some of these costs for certain people that live in our town?
We have so many costs for the Governor Stoughton Trust.
True.
For the residents from in the food pantry.
True.
How do we manage it?
True. I know how we manage it. Right. You're totally right. I'm sorry. I'm just
No.
I'm with you. I don't want to cut you off.
Ms. Musto?
Go back to you for a second.
Okay, sure. Mr. Wells?
So, I get it. It's a lot easier to arbitrate for something when you can fund it yourself versus not being. And I know, I agree with them. Like, as you know, I don't have to keep them in a lot of these homes, and let me ask you this. This is for Mr. Milano. If we don't do this now, when would be the next time? If we stayed at 10, when would be the next time we could entertain 20?
This renewal will likely be in the range of 2 to 3 years. That's typically what we would try to lock in at town buildings, and for both gas and electric were 3 years. This was 3 years, so likely 2 to 3 years. And I would just note that by the time we get to the next renewal, all the green standards in the state
will already be
very high. So 20% for another 3 years might actually exceed 100% on green. So
wait, I don't understand.
20% plus might actually exceed what will be 100% at the state level. Am I right? Did I say that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
So I share the concern about the notice and the opt-out, and that we may lose our green customers, because there would have to be, seems to me, a significant and excessive notice to people to give them the opportunity to go down to basic and out of any green if they wanted to, given the price increase. We would have to make a huge notice, because everyone probably, I don't know if everyone remembers when we rolled this out 3 years ago, but I do.
I remember.
And it was very difficult for people to understand. And it's a great program that is working.
Yes.
But there were bumps at the beginning, because it's difficult to communicate it's difficult to communicate in the aggregate. So in my view, we have a great program that is working. I would be concerned if we went through that excessive notice period, that we would create bumps for a great program, and may end up hurting more than we're helping.
Bumps that don't exist right now.
Bumps that do not and will not exist, because everyone is saving money, and they're saving along the lines of their expectation. They have an expectation interest. We would be changing their expectation interest. If we change their expectation interest, we would have to give a significant notice to them in order to change their expectation interest. And if we did that, it's hard to estimate what the opt-out would be, but it seems to me that it may be significant. If we told people, look, you can stay in here, but you're going to pay double what you're paying now, or you can go back down to the basic with no green.
Right, you pay less.
And pay a lot less. My guess is that we would be, cutting off our nose here. But I may be wrong. But I'm just, I have no statistics to back that up. But that's just a thought, Mr. Wells.
It's a real fact. It's a real fact. So I get Mr. Zoll's passion. He's fighting for the climate. I get that. But unfortunately, this is like you say, Mr. Chair. There are bumps here that we just, if we can avoid them, and we're in a pretty good shape right now. People are still saving money. We're still achieving green credits. I'm going to make a motion that we stay at the. No. Okay. No,
Ms. Bradley, and then Mr.
I'll hold my motion.
Mr. Milano will lead us through the motion.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. So, if we were to do this, when would it start?
I believe it's September of 24. The new rates.
So it would be
kick in.
September. Yeah. And if people, and I have another question, if people go down to basic where they don't pay anything, they don't get the same benefit of the rates that I'm currently getting at the 10%, right? They get different rates.
They have a lower rate that's locked in for the same time period that's better than basic service with the utility.
I understand.
You still benefit from the program where it's a locked-in rate over 3 years with our buying power that should, over the course of the 3 years, generate savings compared to going with the utility, which is your other option.
And you don't have to change that for 3 years.
Correct.
And can I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
And if you chose the basic at the beginning, like I honestly don't know what I chose. I might have chosen, I have no idea. If you are in the basic, will you get a notice if we change to 20%? Would you get a notice that this is where you currently are, and this is where, like, will you get like the tiers again?
It is my understanding that that would not be the case, but I can confirm that.
Okay.
But we could do that.
That's what I'm trying to.
We
The town
just
can
like
communicate.
The town can do that, saying if we're going to make a change, we think people should be notified of what that change is and what their options are.
Right.
And so we could do that outside of Good Energy, outside of the provider.
I mean, it's March.
Oh, sorry.
It's March, so we have until September. So people still save money on the basic.
Yeah.
They're going to save money on the basic is cheaper.
I think I have
than the green. Yeah.
And I'm saving lots of money.
Mr. Wells.
So, as far as notifying, we could social media, public, paper. This is something we could put like on the water bill when they get their water bill, telling them.
We could also just utilize Good Energy to send a postcard like they have in the past. And
There we go.
and
So
do
there's
it.
one I didn't know we'd have.
Yes, and we did that before. And it,
But it's still
Oh, yeah,
very
yeah, you're right.
confusing.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're right. You're right.
absolutely,
It was a
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, it was a mess.
It was a
Absolutely.
mess.
And it was a great program, but it was hard to implement. And this would be a new implementation of the program, in my view. At least an altered implementation of the program. Mr. Zoll.
So, Mr. Chair, if we've done this before, we've got 6 months notice, we've got outside resources to help us notify folks. The folks that have already opted in or people have chosen to opt out have already done that. And folks that have chosen to opt out would have to choose to opt in again. I really fail to see this as the catastrophic world is ending kind of notice that folks are painting. Yes, change can be a little bit difficult and a little bit scary, but we've already had this conversation once before. We can't be scared of having it again in order to increase the amount of renewable energy that the town is using. This has been a good decision for the town in the past. Yes, we had some bumps. Yes, the change can be a little bit scary, but we cannot let a few bumps and a few bit of scary change what the trajectory that we're on, which has been a very positive, good trajectory. So I will vote very strongly against any recommendation to stay at 10%. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Other comments or questions?
I have one more.
Ms. Bradley.
I'm sorry, I keep asking questions. I'm just really trying to understand this. If we lose people in the let's say we go to 20 and we lose people in that 20%, how does that impact us?
They're not green,
Yep.
Right.
and they go to basic.
And they pay
So
less.
they pay less.
Okay, but it doesn't impact the program. Like, I
We
mean,
still have the program.
oh, that's what I, okay. that's what
But so if you are in the second tier, which is it's basic, but the first green level, 10%, and you will get a notice saying you can stay in this, and you're going to double your rate, or you can go down to basic and pay less than you're paying now.
Okay.
And so my concern is that we may lose
I agree.
a significant number.
Thank you
of
for
those.
explaining that.
I think that's right, Mr. Milano. I mean,
Yeah, the program will be locked in for those 3 years, for those 3 tranches at a set price for the duration of whatever we procure, regardless of who moves from place to place.
right, that's right. But it'll be a lower price for basic, a higher price for the 10% or 20% renewal, and then a higher price still for the 100%. Mr. Zoll. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, just very quickly, I want to let everyone know that I do have solar panels on my house, which means that in the summertime, I don't have an electric bill. I've been paying electricity this winter, but I just want full disclosure that people know that I have taken on some debt to put some solar panels on my house in the spirit of full disclosure. Thank you. But I'm still going to be voting on this because this is the future that we're talking about and affects everybody.
Mr. Wells. Mr. Wells.
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I thought you had something.
Good.
All right.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Other comments or questions? Oh, Ms. Musto, go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to say, I just remember when this rolled out in the first place, it was very confusing for the average person. Yes. So now you think about all the different populations we have in this town for all different reasons. I think this could be quite confusing. And yes, it's 6 months, but who really looks at a postcard you get in the mail? Half the time it ends up in the trash and nobody pays attention to it. So I think, we have a system that works well right now. Maybe we do it the next time this comes up, or, it'll automatically, it won't have to. So, I think that, I don't know that the timing is great on this in terms of, we have to educate people on it. And I do recall how hard it was with that first time that it rolled out.
To your point, Ms. Musto, regardless of how much notice you give or try to give, in September, people will be surprised
Yes.
when their rates double.
Yep.
That's not a reason not to do it. Well, it's not the only reason not to do it, but it's a variable, I think. Mr. Milano, what are you asking us to vote on here?
I think the motion would be something to the effect of approval to renew the community electricity aggregation program with the default option at 10% green.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
The Blue Hills Observatory, for the first time in its history, observed no temperatures in the single digits at night last winter. This was the warmest winter we've had in Boston. For that reason, everyone should be voting no.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. All right. So item 13? Or do you
Sorry,
have a
Mr.
change?
Chair.
Yes.
Item 12C, we do need a vote as we expect pricing next week, and then we would have to execute the contracts that same day.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign the electricity supply agreement with the lowest qualified bidder.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
No.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. Okay. Item 13. Item 13, discussion, approval, MBTA Community Act status and issues. I'm not sure if we have anything here. Mr. Milano, is there any update that we have on this?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to note that we have received a proposal from Godin Proctor, who has been engaged as special counsel for a fixed fee for the services related to the Attorney General's lawsuit against the town of Milton. Currently in negotiations on that fixed fee, and hope to have an agreed fee and then by the next meeting.
Okay. Anything else on this?
No.
Okay. Item 14 is deferred. Item 15, committee appointments.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to appoint to the Council on Aging and Board of Directors, Mary Ann, and I don't know if these are reappointments or new appointments, but Mary Ann Merrigan as a full member and Sarah Truog as a full member.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Zulish, yes.
Mr. Chair, B, I'll make a motion to appoint Thomas McCarthy, Director of Consolidated Facilities, to the following committees: Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, Local Emergency Planning Committee, and the Milton Landing Committee.
I will second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. Item 16, discussion approval FY23.
That's not right.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
FY23.
Oh,
It is.
right.
FY23 annual report. We have a draft that has been constructed in large part by our former chair, Mr. Doyle, and by our executive secretary, Ms. DiNapoli.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the FY 2023 annual report for the town of Milton.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Oh, Ms. Musto.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the change was made, Lynn, on the minor change on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
And I will note, just with our thanks to Mr. Doyle, who put a lot of work into this, and Ms. DiNapoli as well, and Ms. Musto as well with the change. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. Okay. Item 17.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a donation from the Milton Junior Women's Club to the Milton Coalition in the amount of $1,000, and thank you them very much for their generous donation.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. Okay, item 18. Do we have item 18, Mr. Milano? Do we have it? I don't know if I saw the change in the board of directors. Do we have that? I didn't see that.
I know it came in. I may not have included it in your materials.
Tuesday.
I apologize.
Can we
That
put it
can
off?
Okay, so we'll defer on item 18.
Yep.
Item 19.
Mr.
we do
Chair,
have.
Item 19, I'll make a motion to approve the request from the First Congregational Church to reserve the Town Green and Barron Gazebo on Saturday, June 25th for the 10th Annual Strawberry Festival from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Oh, wait, that's my church. Do I have to abstain?
No.
No.
And Mr. Zoll is yes.
Mr. Chair, this is June 25th 2023, and I don't think June 25th is a Saturday
In 2023?
in 2024.
It's also 2024.
Right.
This one says June 25th, 2023.
Yeah,
All right.
2 typos there. Apologize. It's June 15th, 2024.
There we go. I'm glad I brought it up.
Yep.
Must have looked at last year's. Sorry for that.
So we can have a motion to amend.
Motion, I'll amend my motion to the 15th of 2024.
I'll
Same
second
time,
that.
same
Motion's been made and
hours,
seconded. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
yeah. Yes.
Mr. Zoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Zulish, yes. Okay.
I'm going to abstain from, so someone else have to, I'm abstaining.
Item-
That's my committee.
Item 20.
I'll make the motion to approve the one-day liquor license for We Are Milton Music Fest and Fireworks Saturday, June 22nd, 5 to 11 p.m., and Sunday, June 23rd, from 2 to 8 p.m. at Hutchinson Field.
I'll second the motion. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Bradley.
Thank you so much. I would just like for our town to possibly think about creating a process for events that are put on by the town-ish and open to the public, that we waive the liquor license fee for those specific groups, so that it is the same across the board and not just for one group that asks for this. So I don't know what that would look like. I would just like to say that it still doesn't feel right to me that it's just one group. If we're doing things for the town, I would like for us to possibly consider, maybe the policy committee can consider this, something that we can put together that it's blanketed for everybody. That's all I wanted to say.
No, I'm fine.
No, Mr. Wells.
I'm just the only, and I don't know if I don't think we ever asked for that. I think that was the town's idea, the government. But I think we're fine with paying that. I'm not going to get into it here, but like, let the policy committee come back to us and like, just, I'm abstaining on this. I'm abstaining on this thing.
I'm abstaining too.
All right. Well, let's not all abstain. Anything further on this?
It'll be a great event once
It
again.
will be
Yes, it
great,
will.
always is. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells is
Abstain.
abstaining. Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. Item 21, discussion approval meeting minutes from February 27th, March 4th, and March 11th.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve meeting minutes, February 27th, March 4th, and March 11th of 2024.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. Town administrator, item 22, Town Administrator's Report.
Sorry, lost my train of thought. As we were discussing the annual report submission, Lynn is doing yeoman's work pulling together all the annual report submissions and chasing a few choice folks who are a little bit behind. So we appreciate her hard work in pulling that together. We'll have it ready in May. Annual town meeting, again, I'm going to do this leading up to the annual town meeting. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. The first 3 nights, and then we would be back the following Monday, Tuesday, and hopefully not back the second week, but if we are, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday again.
Can you say those dates again? I just want to write that down. Can you just say those first 3
May
dates?
6th, 7th, 8th.
Okay.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
And Mr. Milano, we're on target to have the annual report by May 6th.
Yes.
Okay.
We spoke about the annual town election, April 30th, and then I just wanted to note that we got notice, Josh Eckhart-Lee, our Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development, has given us his notice that he'll be taking a position in another community. He'll be here for another couple of weeks. His last day in Milton will be April 5th. Josh puts in lots and lots of hours at many meetings for many boards and committees and has done a great job, and we appreciate him. He always says no problem and jumps right on anything you ask him to do, and we wish him the best at his new position. The assistant director position job posting should be going up tomorrow. So if anybody's interested in jumping into the planning world, we have a lot going on in that world. So please join us, and we look forward to our future assistant director of planning and community development. But we wish Josh the best and would thank him for his service to the town.
All right. Chair's report, we can defer in order to move things along. Public comment response. Is there any public comment, Ms. Bradley?
Can I ask a question? It's not about public comment, but I wanted to say something about Josh.
I do too, that's what I
Oh,
was
okay.
hoping. I
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to
Sorry. Yeah,
say
go ahead.
All right, good.
No, go ahead, yeah.
So I just wanted to say, Josh Eckhart-Lee has been a wonderful asset to this town. I'm very sorry to see him leave. He has been a champion for many things. He has, like Mr. Milano said, he has said yes to everything. I see him at every meeting that I tune into. And I just personally want to say, Josh, thank you for all that you've given us. You will be missed. You will be missed because you had a lot of great ideas, and I'm jealous with whomever is getting you. But
City of Somerville.
oh, well, they're good too. I like them. But yay to Somerville. You're going to love it there. And I wish you nothing but the best. So thank you, Josh, for everything you've done.
And Mr. Wells.
Mr. Chair, I just want to echo, I talked to Josh last night at the East Milton zoning meeting, as once again, he was covering another meeting. But Josh brings that idealism that many young people coming to this world have. He has that zeal and passion for what he believes in, for the work that he does. I am especially grateful to all the work he's done for us on the Landing Committee, which is anyone who's been around knows, it has been such an arduous and difficult process, to everything from land acquisition to purchase to just pollution and all the things that we've found since we first embarked on this tour. And Josh, at least to me as chair of that committee, is there each and every time. He sets the committees, he does the minutes, he interacts with all the agencies, EPA, communities. I listened to him, he spoke on our behalf at the NEPRA meeting in Quincy 2 weeks ago. He did a great job. And one of the things I said to him then, and I reiterate to him now, is, Josh, you're walking in the big world now. Don't be afraid to do it. Walk with confidence, hold your head up, and continue to articulate and fight for those issues that you believe in. And thank you again for everything you did for this town, even though it was a little short. Good luck. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Zoll. Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo very briefly the comments that everyone's made about Josh's conduct, which I have found in my tenure on the select board to be admirable, both on the select board and through the Affordable Housing Trust. And I really just, it's wonderful to hear everyone's glowing comments about Josh now. I really want to encourage everyone on this board, on all of our boards, and all of our town citizens to make sure that they provide these kinds of positive, glowing reports to our fantastic town staff on a regular basis, because we have so many people like Josh who do such an incredible job for this town, and some of them can be at times treated rather unfairly. And I just want us to try to hold ourselves to as high of a standard as Josh held himself to in his time here in Milton, and wish him all of the best, and hope that folks continue to let our great town staff know when they're doing a good job, and let them know how much we appreciate their work and their dedication to this town. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Ms. Musto.
Thank you. Many of the things were already said. Josh was with the MPIC and the Landing Committee, both of which I'm on, always was there, always available for help when people asked different questions. He was always available. And I think very passionate about what he believed in, and always helpful, I think, to most that I heard. And I think that the job that he is going to be taking sounds like a really terrific fit for what he's passionate about, and I think that's really important. I think that the fact that he was here, I guess, for 2 years, I would look at that and say that, Milton was a great fit for having him grow in his role and finding out what his passion is. And it sounds like the job that he's taking, it sounds like really something he's very interested in. So I do wish him well with that.
Great.
Yeah.
Public comment response? Anything on public comment response? Item 25, future meeting dates. So are we fixed on April 2nd and April 23rd?
Yeah, I'm putting a line through the 9th, right? The 9th is out. Okay.
Putting a line through that. All right. Unless something comes up, but hopefully we're not going to have anything more come up. Item 26, future agenda items. Unless anyone has anything, you can always email me. What I'm going to suggest now is that we recess and maybe do our Governor Stoughton Trust before we go into executive session, so that we can go into executive session and not have to return. So why don't motion to recess?
Make a motion to recess to go on to Governor Stoughton, not to return to public session.
I'll second.
Well, no, we are. Just motion. We're going to come back to you. We're going to come back. Yeah. So we're just going to recess. Motion to recess has been made and seconded, I believe. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley, sorry.
Yes.
Bradley, Ms. Musto.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
You have no excuses. It's only 8:55.
Mr. Zoll.
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. All right, so I'm going to call to order the Governor Stoughton Trust. First, as we had the reference in our public comment, the recommendation from the Affordable Housing Trust is that we establish a committee to review the two proposals that were provided in response to the RFP. And perhaps, Mr. Zoll, do you want to take this? We have a memo from Josh Eckert-Lee on the proposal, but do you want to take that, or do you want us just to focus on the memo?
I can take it briefly, Mr. Chair. I just also want to apologize for my voice. I've been battling a bit of a cold, so I know I don't sound like myself. Well, in some ways, I guess I sound like myself, but maybe in the volume and timbre of my voice, I don't sound like myself. So the two, the Affordable Housing Trustees were very pleased with both of the proposals. That we thought that they both had great qualities to them. They did have a couple of of differences, and we felt that the best way forward into making sure that there was a consensus agreement here was that we appointed a committee to review these two proposals to make a recommendation on them. We're very excited about both of them, and I think whatever the committee decides to recommend, I think we'll be excited about. We felt that it was important, as was mentioned earlier during Citizen Speak, to have one or if there wants to be more than one representative from the local community to join. We felt it was important to have a planning board at least informed about the process if they want to appoint someone to help review, that would be helpful as well, because this is something that's going to really help us get closer to our affordable housing goals. This is important land for the town. We want to make sure that there is, a broad support for whichever of these two great proposals that we want to put forward. So that's the idea here, and that we would ask the trustees to consider. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Thank you. Other comments or questions? Yeah. Other comments or questions?
So do we have names? What do we have?
So I'll just, in terms of what we could do is just, we could ask each of these bodies to appoint whomever they wish, and then we could appoint the abutters. We've had two suggestions, one of which we just would want to make sure the other person wants to be suggested, but we have two have been suggested. But go ahead, Ms. Musto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if it would make more sense to first talk with the abutters about these proposals first, since they're the ones who would be the most affected by anything. And what happens if we review these and it comes down that we don't feel that either one is good?
We don't go forward.
Would we go back out?
It would be up to the trustees.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, it seems like, and I was glad that we had one of the neighbors here. I think, talking about putting a committee together to review those, I'm wondering if it makes more sense to have, talk with the neighbors first, as because we are the trustees, more about these proposals first, and then if we want to do, set together, a committee with all of these different entities, then we go from there. But I feel like it would be nice to sit down with them first as neighbors and direct abutters to see what their sense is of these and what some of their concerns. And then if we want to do another committee, which you know how much I love committees, Ms. Bradley, that we would, obviously include a few of those members as well.
So you're suggesting a public hearing?
Or
Public
something.
hearing with a neighbor?
No, not a
Public
hearing, no.
So what are you suggesting? Hold on. So what are you suggesting? Just a meeting of some of us with them, or like what do you think?
Let me think about that.
Yeah, all right.
Formulate it,
Well,
but I'm just thinking of meeting with the neighbors that are the direct abutters.
Yeah, I mean, if we do it, we'd have to do it
Right.
in public session, right? Anyone can come. That's why I suggested a public hearing, or not a public hearing, just a meeting, right? We can have a meeting, and if we wanted to do it with some subset, two of us, we could do that. I want to go to Mr. Zoll, because his hand was up first, and then Mr. Wells, and then Ms. Bradley. So Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, the Affordable Housing Trust feels that it's important for the abutting neighbors and other neighbors to input in on this process, which is why we're recommending them to this committee. We're not on like an unlimited time frame for these appointments, so I want to caution us against holding a series of meetings or the number of different, communications. Contractors work on a particular timeline, and if we decide that we want to draw this out on a long basis, then we're going to end up facing increased costs, and we could end up losing some of these proposals. So, we've had public hearings. The RFP that we ended up putting forward was made with significant input from the abutting community. So I hardly feel like they've been a voiceless presence here, and we want to continue, make sure that they continue to have a voice in this process. But the entire town is invested in having affordable housing built, and not just the abutting neighbors, but everyone is invested in this. And I think we have seen far too often proposals for affordable housing get shot down and then put up, and then we get, hostile 40Bs. And so in this instance where we have the ability to really create a community that can input on these two proposals, we should take that consideration seriously, but we should not outweigh one voice versus the other. Everyone should be able to input on this. And I really want to steer us clear of going down the path of Ms. Musto's plan of having more committees formed. Let's just get these two proposals reviewed by the relevant bodies. Let's ask them to put some people together first and have them review them, have them come forward with recommendations. If they don't recommend anything, then we'll figure out what we do at that point. But having additional meetings when we've already done that and we've already taken the residents' considerations into the RFPs and made significant revisions to the RFPs accordingly, I don't think that that's a good path. I don't think it saves us time. I don't think it saves us money. And I certainly don't think it's going to end up with a better project by having more meetings. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And it could be a parallel process too. We could have the committee reviewing them, and we could also meet with, or some subset could meet with neighbors as well, in addition to the project abutters on the committee. Mr. Wells.
So I'm ready to make a motion to appoint Ms. Wilson tonight, because we know she was here, she said it. No? So you don't want to do that?
We should have an open, shouldn't we?
Well, she represents that. She's.
I'm ready to support that. I think
Okay.
she's
I'm
been
ready.
very interested.
And I do both, but I'm with you.
Well, can we talk about the structure?
Sure.
Like we haven't, I don't feel like, did I miss that?
Let's let Ms. Bradley weigh in on the structure, and then we can have the motion. How about that?
Okay, I thought you gave us a structure. I was okay with.
Well, the structure has been recommended
all
by
right.
the Affordable Housing Trust. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members, and then abutters. Says abutters. We could do 2, and so that would be a 7-member group. If we wanted to do that. So that's the recommendation. Mr. Zoll, did you all have a number on abutters, or is 2 a reasonable number to think about?
I think 2 is a reasonable number, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Do you want to just say who the other?
So it's, I'm sorry, it's Governor Stoughton Trust, so we would have someone.
So 1.
And then it would be the Affordable Housing Trust. And then, and so what we could do tonight is we could appoint one of us, right? And then it would be the Affordable Housing Trust, whomever they want, the Planning Board, whomever they want, the Historical Commission, whomever they want, the MPIC, whomever they want, and then it seems to me abutters that we would appoint, or maybe we appoint Ms. Wilson and then we ask the abutters who they want, to be appointed. Mr. Wells, and then Ms. Musto.
Some-
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I
Oh,
miss you?
sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
Ms. Bradley.
thought
Oh,
he
I'm
did.
sorry.
I wasn't even looking. I just had my hand.
It's
out.
okay.
that's right,
I was
that's right.
from before.
I forgot.
It's
Okay,
okay.
that's right.
So because this is so important to the trust, I feel like we need to have two people of the trust on here. I just do.
Okay, all right.
All of our other committees that we do, we have two people on
I
it.
think you're going to get that anyway. That's why.
No, how are we going to get that?
Because I think from the Affordable Housing Trust, you might get, we have a member there.
Well, it
Yeah,
mentioned.
but it could be
It
anybody.
mentioned actually in the memo that Mr. Callahan and Ms. Conlon expressed interest for the trust.
Which
Yeah,
trust?
From the Affordable Housing Trust.
Which one of them is it going to be? Which one?
We don't know. It would be
Okay,
one of those
okay.
two. They expressed interest. That's what the memo said.
Okay.
We don't know which one.
So my first proposal is we take two people from the trust, the Governor Stoughton Trust.
Yeah.
Let me put this out there. One from the Affordable Housing Trust, one from the Planning Board, one from the Historical Commission, one from the MPIC, two abutters. However, I want to say a caveat about the abutters. I am very grateful that, and I'm going to have to flip back to remember her
Wilson.
name. Thank you. Ms. Wilson came today, and she also suggested somebody else. That is wonderful. Those are two people who showed up here tonight. We actually do not know what the abutters are thinking. And so I don't feel comfortable appointing her because she showed up. And I'm not saying that they're not going to be like, yes, she should be the one, but I almost feel like the abutters should have the opportunity to apply or to nominate their own people. And if she comes here and says, yes, here's 100 people that are abutters that are behind me, then great. But I also want to make sure that it's fair to all of the abutters. I do.
That's a fair point. Fair point.
So I do believe that's what she, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do believe that's what she did, only because I know who she represents the Woodlot neighbors. So that's what she did.
But then she said
So
somebody
just
else. We
just
don't
to
know.
one point though. So just to one point. I'm okay with everything except when it gets us with the final arbiters anyway. We're gonna vote with the trustees,
Right.
so we're gonna vote it. So I don't think in this case.
You don't think we
it doesn't-
need
I don't
to?
think we need two. I think one's. My only thing is I'd add a third. And when I say residents, because there are really three neighbors. So you got Woodlot, you have Governor Stoughton, and you got Whistlebrook. So I think out of fair, because that who came last time was all three neighborhoods. I think out of fairness, give each neighborhood one rep, and then. Maybe Mr. Lano can reach out to the three and we can do it on Tuesday night. And I'm fine with the others, let the others pick whoever they want.
Ms. Musto and then Mr. Zoll.
I think it's also imperative to understand what the trust is. So I would want to make sure that everybody understands what the trust is for. And I'd like to try to see if we can get from Peter Mello, Attorney Mello, if he could get us a legal definition of for the poor of Milton. I'd also like to have something in writing from town council that he will represent the trustees if we are sued on this kind of a matter, and what type of dollar amount that could possibly be, especially when we're talking about context of legal things. So I think that's really important. And just as a quick reference, I would be interested on being on this for the select board for one of the seats on this. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think probably in the interests of having an odd number of folks on the committee, it would make sense to have two and not three members of the community. I agree with Ms. Bradley's point of making sure that folks have the opportunity to apply to be on this. And I do think that it would be important to, in the process of applying, ask folks whether or not they believe that we should be building affordable housing on this lot. Because if they're coming in with the attitude that we shouldn't be doing this, then we know straight away that it's oppositional. But if they're coming in with the idea of, yes, we think that this is the right idea, and I would like to input in on how this works, then that makes sense to me. But just like we would, sort of for any committee, you want to make sure that the folks who are joining it are really vested in a outcome. And of course, people have specific issues with the proposals at hand. That's certainly one thing. But we have voted as a body to do this. We have put the RFP out. It's out there. And bringing in folks who are going to be oppositional to the very notion of having affordable housing on this land would be antithetical to the RFP process and I think counterproductive to the committee. So I would want to posit that as a question that we would have for folks who are joining this. And I would put that question also to anyone from this board that was applying to join as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Ms. Bradley.
Can I just say one thing about who would be the Governor Stoughton Trust appointee? Currently, we have 2 Governor Stoughton Trust members who are appointed to other boards that are made up here. My suggestion would be that neither of them be the appointee from the Governor Stoughton Trust. That if they wanted to become the appointee, they would go through the Affordable Housing Trust or they would go through the MPIC. Both of them, those are the only 2 I can see that has other Governor Stoughton Trust members on it. So I would suggest that the Governor Stoughton Trust members come from another fraction of this because we do not have any opinions on the Affordable Housing Trust, nor do we have any opinions on the Master Plan Implementation Committee. So that would be almost a neutral voice for the Governor Stoughton Trust because we aren't influenced by these other committees that we sit on.
So then it would be either you or Mr. Wells,
Right.
because I may not be here. That's
Right.
But,
So
Mr.
it'd be
Zoll.
me or Mr. Wells.
I would agree with that,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, just
I'm fine with
briefly.
that.
Sorry, Mr. Wells.
I don't care. We'll flip a
I'm
coin.
It can be you. I don't care.
I don't care either.
Okay. All right. So, So it sounds like there's consensus that would be Mr. Wells or Mr. Bradley from this
Miss.
board. Did I say Miss?
You said Mr.
Mr. Wells? Or
Mr. Bradley.
I said Mr. Bradley.
It's okay.
Good.
Ms.
We're gonna get
Ms.
through it.
Bradley, Ms. Bradley and Mr. Wells.
9:10 now. Let's go.
And then we
all
want to
together.
reach out. We want to reach out to the neighborhoods
Yes.
and see who would be interested. And then might I suggest that I guess let's see the level of interest, and then we can see whether we be 2 or 3. So, Mr. Milano, do you have a way to reach out?
I can help
There
you.
were. I had people reaching out before. Ms. Wilson obviously reached out. And there were a couple of other people who reached out before. So maybe those would be the touch points that we go
Yes,
back to.
and that when this was back up, when we had the public hearing, there were folks who came and provided their contact info
Right.
and had reached out by email as well
Right.
beforehand. So we
They
have
meet pretty regularly.
we can circulate it.
And I don't want to say that Miss Wilson is not the right
No.
candidate.
No,
I just
no,
don't
it's a-
want. I just don't want people to feel like they don't
It's
have
a
a
good
voice.
point. Oh, it's a good point.
Okay.
It's a good point. All right. So I think we're generally in agreement about
Yeah.
the structure, and
Yes.
we just need to see what the abutters have to say.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yep.
Any other
Yep.
comments, questions, Mr.?
I'm ready. I'm good.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
All right.
All good, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
so just
Milano.
sorry for point of clarification. So should notify each of these boards to appoint somebody on this committee.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We'll do.
All right. So meeting minutes.
So I think they're going to have to notify you, and then we'll appoint them, right? Are we going to appoint them?
No, I
Okay,
think we can. Well, yeah, I guess we're appointing. Governor Stoughton trustees will have to appoint them, but they should make a recommendation to us.
Okay.
You know, Ms. Musto.
So will each of the appointed people, will they have the information so they understand what the trust's role is in this and what the trust asks for with regards to this? Because I think that's very important.
Yeah.
And I do want these legal questions answered in writing. So I do think that's important. I also want to know, and maybe we can get some clarification of this, if for affordable housing, I want to know I looked at these briefly. It doesn't look like there's any Milton preference in either of these. So I would like to know if there is anything with preference, what it is, and I also want to know what the state breakdown is. I believe it was 70-30 maximum. So I'd like some more clarification on those issues.
In terms of the review committee, I mean, the review committee is to review the RFPs.
Right.
I don't know that the review committee needs to know what the trustees' role
Exactly.
is.
Yeah,
We're
Not the
trustees.
role, but I mean, in terms of what the purpose of the will is. So you're reviewing proposals, but that it has to fit in with what the definition is.
Right. I
as
think
well.
it's in the RFP. I think we have it. I think so. What the people on the review committee could receive is the RFP, which
Yeah.
we issued, and then the responses, and then they could weigh in on which responses are better or acceptable. If those responses because that's the kind of limited role here. It's reviewing the RFPs to either choose the best one or choose neither. I suppose.
Because we've already voted to do this.
We voted to issue an RFP.
Right. So that's what their next charge will be.
Is to review, this would be a review committee to review the proposals that have been
Right,
presented
okay.
in response to the RFP. And they could either say that these are good proposals, or this one's the best proposal, or neither one of them is any good, for whatever reason, it seems to me. So, okay. Anything else on this?
I think we have to move to approve, wait a minute, on Governor Stoughton? Is this Governor Stoughton or this?
Yeah, we're still in Governor Stoughton.
That's what I mean, so
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right, so
waiting.
I'm gonna make a motion,
waiting.
I'm gonna make a
I'm
motion
waiting.
to approve. I didn't know, I thought you were still talking about the
No,
RFP. so-
I was, and now I'm
All right,
done.
no, you're all right, okay, because we have stuff we have to do tonight. So
Yeah.
move to approve the amended meeting minutes dated October 24th, 2023, November 14th, 2023, January 23rd, 2024, and March 12th, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Ms. Bradley.
No. I mean, yes. Sorry. Sorry. I'm looking
Ms.
sorry.
Musto.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Zoll.
Yes.
And Mr. Zulus. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to I move to adjourn the meeting of the Governor Stoughton Trustees.
Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley.
Yes.
Ms. Musto.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Zoll.
Yes.
And Mr. Zulus, yes. All right, we are returning now
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
to the meeting of the Milton Select Board, item 27. I will move to adjourn from open session and enter into executive session for a discussion regarding strategy with respect to litigation filed by the Attorney General versus the Town of Milton. Based on my belief that discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Select Board, the Select Board will not return to open session.
I'll second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulus, yes. Item 28, I move to adjourn from open session and enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to threatened litigation based, I'm sorry, to discuss strategy with respect to, with respect to,
Conduct?
no, hold on, give me a minute. Strategy with respect to bargaining with non-union personnel, the town administrator, based on my belief that discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the Select Board. And the Select Board will not return to open session.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulus, yes. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulus, yes. Thank you, everyone. We will see you again next Tuesday at 7 p.m., April 2nd. Thank you all.